Hi, my name's Daryl, and here's your Jeep news for February 27th. So in my first news story, I want to talk about the brand new Ram 1500 RamCharger Pickup Truck. Now, before you click away, I know this isn't a Jeep, but the same powertrain is going to go into the 2026 Wagoneer, and this powertrain and this pickup truck is really about to change the pickup truck marketplace forever, so stay tuned. Now, if you don't know, the Ram 1500 RamCharger, it's an EV pickup truck, but for all you EV haters out there, one significant change. You don't have any sort of range anxiety when you're going on long trips or when you're towing. And the reason for this is it has a gas-powered V6 Pentastar engine in the engine bay, and it's serving as a generator. So when the battery starts to get low, the Pentastar engine turns on and it powers the battery, and then it can go up to 700 miles without actually having to get more gas. So really amazing. Now this is the first ever kind of plug-in hybrid or range extending EV pickup truck on the market, and it's really going to change things forever. So let's get into it. Now, one of the things that have plagued EV pickup trucks is when they're towing. This story from Forbes really kind of talks about it. So with all these trucks have the ability, the EV trucks have the ability to pull very heavy trailers because EV trucks can tow quite a bit. They share a trait with all towing vehicles. When you latch a big load on the back, energy efficiency typically drops by at least 50% and sometimes significantly more because of the size of the trailer. Now with a gasoline truck, you just have a big gas tank and you go to a gas station, you're fine, but with an EV truck, you've got a lot of issues. And a lot of EV pickup trucks really can only get like 100 miles of range or so when towing, so it really puts a lot of pressure on them having to find, kind of power stations to plug in at and to get additional charge and then get back on the road again. So a lot of truck buyers have basically moved away from pickup trucks, at least truck buyers that actually want to use the truck as a truck. Maybe if you're just tooling around town and you don't care about towing, then it's probably fine. But if you want to have a truck for truck things, yeah, that's going to be really important. So let me talk about some of the basics about the RamCharger pickup truck, just in case you don't know. Most of this information has already been presented, and I'm going to focus on some of the new stuff in just a second. So couple things about the truck. It's got 647 horsepower and 610 pound-feet of torque. It does 0 to 60 in like 4.5 seconds. It's got 2,600 pounds of payload and about 14,000 pounds of towing capacity. Now, compared to other Ram 1500 and other full-size pickup trucks, this can tow and has much more payload than the regular full-size pickup trucks. This actually puts this very much in the heavy-duty pickup truck kind of class. So even though it's a smaller truck, yeah, it can do some really, really great truck things. Now, as far as the range goes, it has a smaller battery pack. So it has a 90 kilowatt battery pack, but, and this is kind of new, you only get 70 kilowatts of usable range. And I'm going to talk about that in just a second. As far as the EV driving range, you get about 140 miles of EV driving range without, towing, and you get approximately 545 miles, including just alone in hybrid mode, which gives you almost 700 miles of total range if you have a full gas tank and a full battery. So lots of really great stuff about the pickup truck, but we've learned a lot more here recently. They estimated the gas mileage of the pickup truck unleaded, so basically just using the Pentastar engine as a generator, kind of recharging the battery and just using that. They're estimating that to be 20 miles per gallon. Now, I wouldn't say that's class leading in gas mileage. If you compare that to the F-150 hybrid pickup truck, which gets 23 miles per gallon, yeah, it doesn't do quite that well. But the thing about that F-150 hybrid pickup truck, as soon as you start towing with it, because it's turbocharged, those turbos are constantly under load, and the gas mileage in the pickup truck drops dramatically when you start towing. When you compare the RamCharger pickup truck to other heavy-duty pickup trucks, gasoline-powered ones, it actually does quite a bit better. So a regular heavy-duty Ram 2500 Hemi pickup truck gets about 15 miles per gallon combined gas mileage. And so given that it's doing 20 miles per gallon gas mileage, yeah, it's doing probably a lot better than most other gasoline-powered pickup trucks that don't have a diesel engine. Now, if you don't know, in order for pickup trucks or any truck to get a tow rating, it's got to go through this thing called the SAE J2780 Tow Test. And this is kind of like the standard. And so it used to be that trucks, manufacturers or auto manufacturers could independently do their own testing and come up with that tow rating. And now they're required to follow the standard, which is actually a pretty stringent standard. They do all kinds of things. They do brake testing, they do reverse testing, they have to do towing up a hill. So they have to go up this, I think it's called Davis Dam. They have to pull, I think, 3,000 or 3,000 feet of elevation change over 11 miles. And they have to do it in over 100 degrees of temperature. So a pretty serious test, and they have to be going, I guess, at least 40 miles per hour. But that's, you know, what diesels sometimes do up that significant of a hill. So they did these tests on the new RamCharger pickup truck, and it passed in flying colors. Now they actually did 3 different tests. They did it in regular battery mode, so it was just using the battery to do it, which of course was fine. They also did it in, I guess you would call it hybrid mode, where the battery was charging at the same time, and it passed. And then they finally did it with a fully depleted battery, where all they were relying on was that Pentastar engine as far as powering the vehicle. Now, that's one thing to know about with this particular vehicle is the Pentastar engine that's acting as a generator doesn't actually provide power to the wheels. So the Pentastar engine primarily works as a generator. So there's a generator attached to the Pentastar engine, and then typically what happens is it takes the power it generates and it puts it into the battery, and then the battery powers the 2 motors. Interestingly enough, this vehicle has 3 different ways to power the wheels. So it has this one mode, which is called kind of EV mode that we're all familiar with. It's charge depleting mode, where basically your battery powers the motors, which then powers the wheels, and then you go. Then they have this thing called charge sustaining mode. And so you have the engine, and then you have the generator, and the generator goes into the battery pack, and then the battery pack powers the 2 electric motors. And finally, and this is definitely new, so like this whole technology is all new. In this 3rd mode, this is engine only power looping. So this is hybrid mode with either a low state of charge in the battery, or perhaps the battery is too cold or too hot to be usable. So then you have the engine directly going to the generator, and then the generator directly powering the motors to power the vehicle. So you have the Pentastar engine up front, but the nice thing about this particular application is you don't have the alternator, you don't have all the different accessories attached to the engine. So it's very much a streamlined kind of engine. It doesn't have to power the transmission. So it's going to be relatively efficient. Then you have your 2 battery trays. So you have a battery tray right here, and then you have another battery tray right here. And then you have your battery pack that goes into this first battery tray right here. Now they're not using all of the trays. I didn't mention this, but they do have plans for the Ram 1500 Rev, which is a fully electric vehicle, and it would actually use both battery trays. It would have significant more battery in it, I think 230 kilowatt hours of batteries, but they are not going to do that for this application. So what they have instead is they have a 27-gallon gas tank over here. So you have your batteries, and your batteries power the electric drive modules right here and right here. And then of course you have your engine and your emissions equipment over here. So they actually had to increase the frame size. I think it was like 7 inches in order to accommodate the trays for the batteries, and as well as the gas tank. So returning to the J2807 test, one of the things that the Ram folks talked about was when it was under load, so when it was fully laden with 14,000 pounds of payload using the appropriate size trailer. So one of the things that the J2807 test specifies is for each tow rating, you have to have a certain frontal area for a trailer. It actually specifies the trailer that you're supposed to be using for towing that specific weight. But they said when it's fully laden with 14,000 pounds, you're going to get 39 miles of EV range if you're pulling that just with EV, which isn't a lot. So it drops from, let's see, 140 miles to 40, which I think is typically pretty typical for an EV. However, when you are using range extending mode, you can add additional 230 miles to that. So you get approximately 270 miles of range when you're doing towing using a full battery as well as full gas. And so that's actually a pretty good range. And then, of course, all you would need at that point is to pull into a gas station, fill up the gas tank, and then you have another 230 miles of range, which is pretty good. Now, they are estimating, based on that 230 miles of range, that your gas mileage is going to drop from 20 miles per gallon when not towing to about 8.5 miles per gallon when you are towing. However, I think that's actually pretty good. If you look at whatever heavy-duty pickup trucks, when they're pulling, what kind of gas mileage you get, it's probably going to be pretty consistent. And also, a lot of times when folks do towing tests on different pickup trucks, they often don't pull a 14,000-pound trailer. I would have to look at some additional towing vehicles to see, what those heavy-duty trucks get as far as gas mileage goes. The non-diesel-based pickup trucks. But typically, a gas-powered pickup truck pulling about 7,500 pounds is going to get anywhere in the range of 8 to 12 miles per gallon typically. So 8.5 miles per gallon towing 14,000 pounds. Yeah, I think that's pretty darn good. Now this image comes to us from Alex on Autos, and this is kind of an estimate. But I talked about a little bit how that 91 kilowatt hours, you only get 70 kilowatt hours of real range because they are reserving additional percentages of that battery for use. So they want you to have that full power on board whenever you're using the pickup truck. So they reserve 10% of it, they reserve another 7% and another 3% on top of that. So they reserve 20% of that battery kind of for hybrid use. But when you are towing, that changes a little bit. So it has 20% normally reserved for that extra power when you need it. But when towing, especially when you're towing upgrades and you choose to go into tow mode, it's going to reserve 35% of your battery for towing needs. So if you've got, a steady state uphill climb and you're going to have to use more battery power as you're going up that hill, it's going to want to make sure that there's at least 35% of that battery on board. So when you hit that tow mode button, if you're not currently at 35% of battery use percentage, it's going to start up the Pentastar engine and it's going to charge that battery until you're up to 35%. And then it's going to maintain that until you choose to turn off tow mode. Now, I was watching a video actually today, kind of as a follow-up for the video that I'm doing right now. And Tim Esterdahl, he does a Pickup Truck Plus SUV Talk video channel, and he had the opportunity of speaking to Joe Talkitz. I can't pronounce that, but he's the Stellantis propulsion system chief engineer, and so he was vitally involved in regards to the drivetrain of the Ram 1500 RamCharger. One of the things that he said in regards to this tow mode was that if you were doing just steady state driving, 65 to 75 miles per hour, and towing that 14,000 pound load, that you really didn't have to have it on tow mode. But he said that if you do anticipate doing some climbing up mountains and stuff, to make sure that you turn that on. And then once you do that, once again, it's going to make sure that that battery is topped off to at least 35%. So like other electric pickup trucks, this has power on board. And so you have 7.2 kilowatts available of power. So you have a 240 volt plug here, and then you also have four 120 volt plugs over here. Additionally, this does have the availability of doing vehicle to vehicle charging. And so you can use your existing charge port adapter and then charge another vehicle. It also has vehicle to home. So you can use your 7.2 kilowatt charger there. You can use it to power your home in an emergency and use it as a backup generator. And what's nice about this, and similar to the F-150 hybrid, is that all you need, of course, for this generator to run is just gas, unlike the F-150 Lightning or the Chevy Silverado EV, which requires you to have battery power on hand in order to, which you don't have if you've lost your electricity. So it's nice that you could just use gas to power the generator. Now, one interesting thing that Ram did talk about, and I think Tim Kuniskis actually discussed this, was the reason that they chose the Pentastar engine versus like the 2-liter turbo engine. And really it has to do with the simplicity of the engine. The Pentastar engine actually handles heat very well. It's one of the reasons they put that Pentastar engine in the Gladiator pickup truck as opposed to the 2.2-liter turbo engine. Also, it's very quiet. And so one of the things that the engineers said is that they had some executives in the Ram 1500 pickup truck and they were driving it, and they couldn't actually tell when the engine turned off and when it turned on. So that's another reason why they chose that, as well as, they don't have to worry about the intercooler and the cooling of the intercoolers and the additional cooling requirements of that 2-liter turbo, as well as kind of the turbo noise. So yeah, that's basically the reason why they chose that Pentastar engine. And I think one of the reasons also was the nature of turbo engines. So when you get a turbo engine under load, it doesn't get great gas mileage. You could tell that from some of the pickup trucks that have turbocharged motors in them, and when they are under load doing towing, they get significantly worse gas mileage. I talked about that a little bit earlier. Well, as the naturally aspirated V6, it's a really pretty good towing engine. I mean, it doesn't tow a whole lot, but it gets pretty good gas mileage when it is towing, and it also handles that heat very well as opposed to a turbocharged engine. Now, one other interesting tidbit about the selection of that Pentastar engine, it's pretty quiet. And I've got my RAV4 Prime, and when I'm towing, it's got that CVT transmission, and so I get that drone. And I think it's right around 35 or 4,000 RPMs that it just, when I'm going up a mountain, it's just awful. One of the things he did say in regards to the engine is they didn't want, kind of a constant RPM running all the time when you are kind of putting the whole system under load. And so depending on the driver inputs and what you have going on. So if you're towing up a big hill, he said the RPMs level will change based on the needs of the engine, and also just to make it seem like more like of a regular truck. So yeah, I appreciate that. Additionally, you get air suspension, and I think this has to do with how heavy of the pickup truck is and how much the frame has been reinforced. You also get a front axle disconnect, so when you're not in sport mode or towing mode or four-wheel drive mode, that front axle can disconnect, only driving the rear wheels, and so it'll get a little better fuel mileage, and you can also get rear lockers for it. So in regards to the charging architecture, it comes with a 400 volt system, so it can do DC fast charging, and it takes from 20% to 80%, it takes about 45 minutes, and 20% to 100%, it takes about an hour. So it's not super fast. I think they're believing that most folks are going to be charging at home, and with a level 2 charger, it should take you about 8 hours to fully charge the vehicle. Now, in regards to pricing, like I said, the trims haven't been announced yet, and pricing hasn't been announced yet. I think they're probably going to start off with maybe a mid-level trim and then the upper level trims as well. Tim Kuniskis talked a little bit about the kind of the average transaction price of a full-size pickup truck being about $70,000. So they might have kind of been hinting that that's what, kind of the initial pricing is going to be for that RamCharger. I really hope it's going to be a little bit lower. I think Ram has really a shot of knocking this out of the park. And I think if they would give us an entry-level vehicle in the range of $55,000 to $60,000, I think buyers would flock to that pickup truck. It's going to be a little bit of a, it's going to be a little risky to buy this pickup truck, given that this is their first entry or the first entry ever into a pickup hybrid extended range, EV extended range pickup truck. And so hopefully they're going to offer some initial kind of low-level trims at an entry-level price that, we can swallow. But most folks are think it's going to be anywhere between $65,000 for the, the mid-level trim that they're going to offer initially to well over probably $100,000 for the various high-level trims. But yeah, hopefully we'll get additional information from Ram a little bit later on, and we get some pricing and know exactly when the pickup truck's going to be offered. So I know that went a little long. I apologize for that, but let's talk about some other Jeep news. The first one comes from Mopar Insiders, and Jeep put in a patent for an innovative rooftop tent design specifically for the Wrangler. And so I always get kind of jealous when I see Jeeps with the, the big racks on the roof and the big rooftop tents and stuff like that. They're really cool. Of course I've got a little RV, so they're probably jealous of mine as well. But this one is from Jeep, and it integrates to the existing rooftop. So what's interesting about this is you actually take the Freedom panels off, so you can kind of see that. Well, where can we see it? Yeah, so you can kind of see it here. So the Freedom panels come off, and then this thing sits into the Freedom panels and goes down over the top of the roof. And so it sits nice and flat, so it has a really nice kind of low profile look. And then it lifts up and extends and gives you a really nice tent. And so really, really interesting. Now, the nice thing about this is most of these rooftop tents, you have kind of like a little ladder on the outside, and then you have to exit the vehicle and then, kind of go up the ladder and then get into your tent. Whereas this one is designed to actually use your Freedom panels so that you can get access to the tent from inside of the vehicle. I don't know if there's like a little ladder that drops down where you have to jump off the top of your seats and jump into the tent. I'm not sure about that. I don't know if they showed that exactly, or if they have to do like a little pull up to get up there, but it shows like the little pillows and your little bed and stuff like there. But it has a little awning, optional awning that you can also purchase for it. So it extends out over the top of the Jeep, which is really nice. And it also comes with like a little power station. So it includes an electrical system that can connect to the vehicle's energy storage or its own independent source. The system can power both the vehicle and tent accessories, enhancing the camping experience with convenience like lighting, charging ports, and climate control. So yeah, if you're out in the cold and if you need a heater, you can turn on your Jeep's heater and then it can warm your tent. And so yeah, this is really a neat idea for the Jeep. I'm not sure when this would come to market, how much they would charge for it, but certainly could revolutionize the vehicle-based camping and provide Jeep enthusiasts with a seamless and highly functional solution for off-road adventures. So yeah, that's super cool. So check out that article. And my last article is about the Dodge Charger Daytona. And had a lot of mixed reviews on the Dodge Charger Daytona EV. Most of your real big Mopar fans, they hate the EV stuff, and most of your EV folks, they really don't like the implementation, how they implemented the EVs on this particular Charger. But they are talking about perhaps moving to solid state battery cells for this vehicle. So of course, we had a big delay in 2024, so we have 2024 Dodge Daytonas on dealers' lot. We have 2025 Dodge Daytonas on dealers' lots. And they're going to actually stop production of the 2025s in March. They're going to close the plants down for 2 months. Then they're going to prepare. I guess they have to use new battery trays, so they have to figure out how the new battery trays are going to go in place for eventually the solid state battery technology, and then they going to start producing 2026 models. So some of the benefits of this new solid-state battery technology is the fact that they can give you a lot more range. So they're talking about possibly over 600 miles of range. And they're also going to take up less space, and they're going to be lighter. So that's one of the complaints about the Charger Daytona, is the fact that it's kind of heavy. So this is going to do a lot to reduce the weight. Now, the one thing that they don't really know is that they're saying in this article it's unclear whether the pause in production is solely to prepare for the demonstrator fleet, test vehicles to make sure that the engineering is solid, or if it's actually going to be used for real consumer models. And so they're actively looking into this. But I guess job one for the 2026 Charger Daytona is set for May 26. And so, yeah, we're definitely going to be hearing more information about this soon. But I'm really excited that Stellantis is making this move to solid-state technology. I think it's going to do a lot to improve that Charger Daytona and some of the future models that have this EV technology built into them. So this is Daryl with your Jeep News, and I hope to see you in the next one again very soon.